We're ready for the highlight of the evening, our annual Society of the Silurians Excellence in Journalism Awards. Welcome winners, welcome guests, welcome Silurians, and a big thank you to every news organization that submitted entries. And so our first honored guest is Anthony Mancini, honored this year with the Peter Kihss Award. Honored for his career in mentoring younger journalists, first as a reporter for the New York Post, and for many years as a professor in the Brooklyn College journalism program. There is so much to say about Tony. I knew him just a wee bit from my drinking days at the Lions Head. So where to begin? A good place is to read from Clyde Haberman's article in the Silurian News. To quote from Clyde, Tony is this year's recipient of the Silurians Peter Kihss Award, named for a titan of New York journalism. From one angle, he is an unusual winner, having been away from daily newspapering for nearly 4 full decades. But in more important respects, he is an ideal selection. Winners of the Kihss Award are honored in good measure for nurturing young talent, and few can claim to have done that longer and with more lasting results than Tony, who is director of the Brooklyn College journalism program and has taught there since 1980. Take it from former students, writes Clyde. Without Tony, I wouldn't be in the business. It's that simple, said Glenn Thrush, who covers the Trump White House for the Times. Among the many lessons he learned from Professor Mancini was that everything you write, even a 300-word cop brief, should be accurate, acute, and alive. Jennifer Steinhauer, who covers Congress for the Times, took Tony's class when he worked for a while at the School of Visual Arts. He taught the fundamentals that are so sadly lacking in the farm system of papers these days, and added he is also good company and was never cynical. Okay, that's Clyde on Tony. Now here is Tony Mancini's objective look at Tony Mancini. To quote, Tony Mancini is a veteran reporter, novelist, and journalism professor who began his career as a 19-year-old copy boy, bringing coffee to and taking guff for members of the overnight rewrite bank at 75 West Street, then headquarters of Dorothy Shipp's tabloid New York Post, a place as profane and picturesque as any scene set by Ben Hecht and Charles MacArthur. Having managed to survive the first-hand smoke and whiskey-stained linoleum of this introduction to the world of journalism, he ultimately spent some 20 years as a shoe-leather reporter covering everything under the sun, except sports, until the newest shift bastion in South Street was invaded by the Hunnish forces of Rupert Murdoch. With a couple of novels already under his belt and sniffing the distinct odor of kangaroo in the air, he left for the browner pastures of freelance. Salvation came in 1980 when he nailed a steady job at Brooklyn College, where he collected a bi-monthly salary and began to teach. And what a revelation that was. The kids actually took notes when he talked. He has spent the last 37 years nurturing, he hopes, the better instincts, crisper prose, and keener news judgment of his young charges, rooted in the belief that if you want to know the truth of anything, you have to go to the scene. He has no plans to retire. And here's what a few of Tony's more recent students think of Tony. To quote, he is a god. The man teaches you the basics of journalism and pushes you to the next level. If you want to learn the basics, take him now. Another student. Mancini is great. His critiques of his students aren't as bad as people make it seem. It is just to make you have a pair of balls to stand up to other people. He is great and easy. Take him. Another student. I have graduated, but I will never forget Mancini. Nice, funny, smart, and enthusiastic about journalism and his students. Anthony Mancini is an asset to Brooklyn College. But this student found one major fault with Tony. He's a Yankee fan. And so, fellow Yankee fan, The Society of the Silurians, in recognition of your distinguished career as a newspaper reporter and as the longtime director of the journalism program at Brooklyn College, where you mentored hundreds of students and inspired many of them to become professional journalists, all in the legendary tradition of Peter Kihss, the Society of the Silurians is proud to hand you this Peter Kihss Award.
Thank you, Bernie. First of all, did anybody bring Donald Trump's teleprompter? Because I want to sound smarter than I am. Is this good? Okay. All right. I guess I'll have to wing it. You only have to mention that schmuck's name and you get a laugh automatically. So this is it.
It's too long, George.
Okay. Good evening, guests, fellow awardees, and fellow dinosaurs of the Society of the Silurians. I hope that there's an ambulance parked outside looking around here. I better get serious. I can see my wife Maria over there ready to toss the remnants of her whatchamacallit, her food at my head, her dinner roll. Peter Kihss. To have my name linked with his in any way is a distinct honor, and one for which I am most grateful. I am grateful, too, to be included in the august company of my forerunners in this award. What a constellation of star journalists, really. Most of them my friends. Clyde Haberman, Joe Berger, Dennis Duggan, Pete Hamill, and on and on. When I first heard that I had won, I checked the calendar to see if it was April 1st. It was not. This is not false modesty. In my career, I thought I was flying under the radar. No Watergates for me. I think my biggest scoop was the bombshell, as they label it. Every story nowadays is a bombshell, that the mom pictured on the ivory snow box was none other than the porn star Marilyn Chambers. I suppose it was a case of slow and steady wins the race. I realize that I'm being honored and singled out not only for my work as a shoe leather reporter, which occurred when dinosaurs indeed roamed the earth, but also for my mentoring of a new generation of ink-stained reptiles. And this makes me really proud. But back to Peter Kihss. In the twilight of my career, of his career, and the dawn of mine, we crossed paths. I remember him quite vividly. Who could forget him? Suitably, he looked like a bloodhound, with his creased face, if you remember, and doleful eyes, shambling into press conferences and crime scenes. I think he even wore a trench coat and a fedora, though this might just be a trick of memory. He was rumpled, am I right? You guys will remember him? Unassuming, and his big hands held those handy digital tools, ballpoint pen and notebook. I also remember that he was unfailingly polite and helpful to neophytes like me. But we weren't intimate friends or anything. My true mentors for what I like to call the ex-New York Post, under the ownership of Dorothy Schiff, all of whom have gone to that city room in the sky. For me, it's a kind of an honor roll, and I'd like to sound their names. Many of you will remember them. Paul Sand, Joe Kahn, Ed Catcher, Helen Dudar, Archer Winston, Barbara Yunker, George Troe, Al Davis, Nora Ephron, and Murray Kempton. Murray was very helpful whenever I could understand his Baroque language, at least. Anyhow, wherever you are, I hope your current editor-in-chief doesn't say, the boss insists you include your profile subject's mother's maiden name. An inside joke for those of us who worked for Dolly. So these folks and others gave this working class boy from the Bronx a hand up, and I am eternally grateful. I especially remember, not as a mentor, but as an inspiration, a reporter named Henry Beckett. Perhaps some of you recall him. I guess I was a copy boy ending the lobster shift when I first noticed him. He must have been in his 70s then. Well-dressed, courtly. When he cheerfully showed up every day at Johnny Bott's elbow to receive his general assignment marching orders. What a testimony his life and attitude were to the joys and virtues of general assignment reporting, a vocation that is fast becoming a lost art. But before I sing its praises, I will follow another one of Dolly's dictums. Bio should be higher. I am lucky to have stumbled on 3 callings for which I have gotten paid: reporting, writing fiction, and teaching. And they are all interrelated. Let's begin at the beginning. My identical twin brother, Joe, and I were 19-year-old Fordham College students when a friend informed us of a job opening for a copy boy working the overnight shift at the Post on West Street, 5 days a week. We could have used the money, but as full-time students, it would have been impossible for any one of us alone to keep up the pace. So we hit upon an idea. We would alternate nights. So he should up the first night, I should up the next, and so on. At first, nobody was the wiser, and later they realized the truth when they didn't care. We were casual employees as long as one of us showed up. Thus was launched 2 careers in journalism. Joe has had a distinguished career in newspapers, TV, magazines, public service, government service, and now works with Pat Lynch at the Patrolmen's Benevolent Association. Anyhow, we both passed our reporter tryouts, and I spent the next 20 years or so mostly doing general assignment work, not counting a stint in the Army, and a year's leave of absence when I had 2 major accomplishments: the completion of my first novel, and most importantly, the birth of my first child, Romy, who was born in Rome and who is here tonight. Back to the virtues of general assignment. This is where I got my true education. I interviewed kings and con artists, covered the United Nations and the police shack, presidential elections, and community board meetings, 3-alarm fires, and senatorial hearings. I interviewed Catholic bishops and mafia dons. I shook hands with King Hussein of Jordan and pissed in the Delegates Lounge men's room in the urinal next to Chief Adebo of Nigeria. All of those experiences inform my teaching and my writing of novels and whatever else. I tell my academic colleagues that I don't have an MA or a PhD, but I have an MFA for covering murders, fires, and accidents. What a rich experience it all was. And then it came along, and I'll whisper the name, Rupert Murdoch. Some may disagree, but the invasion of the Aussies and their Fleet Street enablers was a dark day for American journalism, sowing the seeds for the propagandistic pontificating by the right and the left that passes for journalism nowadays. But it was a good day for my personal fortunes. It resulted in the buyout that provided the down payment for the apartment in which I raised 2 kids and in which I still live. I call it the Rupert Murdoch Memorial Loft. It also led after about a year of chasing the check as a freelancer to my present vocation as a professor of journalism at Brooklyn College, where I discovered to my surprise that I had a knack for teaching and a love for it. Teaching and mentoring is a lot like parenting. You nurture values and cultivate talents. You leave a legacy, not of money or real estate, but of standards of craft and glory and integrity. Then you let them go and you bask in reflected glory. I'm thinking of my former students, Glenn Thrush, Mike McAuliffe, Owen Mugen, Jennifer Steinhauer, and dozens more. I can't tell you how gratifying mentoring young men and women has been to me. So what do I teach these aspiring journalists? Well, first of all, how to fill out an expense voucher. That's a very... Or that, as my colleague Bernie Bard used to say, if it ain't catered, it ain't journalism. I'm trying not to sound too lofty here, but first of all, I teach them. First of all, I drill them. Not just teach, but drill them in the time-honored crafts of reporting and writing. Whatever the so-called platform, the values of these skills will never diminish. If they're tempted by the siren call of social media and digital gimcracks, I tell them that these tools are all well and good, but they should remember that technology has a way of shifting under your feet, leaving you dizzy and disoriented. A lot of great journalism was done by candlelight with pen and paper. So keep your eyes on the lodestar. Despite what Marshall McLuhan told us, I interviewed him once and he was a pompous ass. The medium is not the message. The message is the medium is merely a tool for delivering the message. The message is the damn message. And the printed word will always matter, whether on screen or on paper. I try to teach clarity of expression, precision of thought. I try to teach them to fight to keep up the wall between fact and opinion, between advertising and editorial departments. Entrepreneurial journalism sounds to me like a dangerous notion. Citizen journalism also sounds tinny to my ear, implying that one needs no training to be a journalist. I'm reminded of our friend Mike Levitas's question, would you have your kidney removed by a citizen surgeon? Under economic pressures, I see a trend that we in journalism are making a Faustian pact for clicks and eyeballs by whatever means, and maybe losing our journalistic souls. I also tell them, don't aggregate the news, excavate the news. Don't cover tweets, but cover beats. Don't surf the web, but climb the stairs. Sure, use the technological tools that make the job easier, but don't forget to get off your duff, walk the streets, talk to people face to face where you can judge body language and facial expressions. Prefer the phone to email and texting where you can hear the tone of voice and your sources don't have the time to tailor their responses and shade the truth. You know, I tell my students who prefer texting and everything that I'm sure that if voice were invented after texting, they would say, God, this is such a nice, cool new way of communicating. You can actually hear the voice and wow, and react immediately. And it would be a great tool for them. Most of all, be skeptical, confirm the facts. As the old saying goes, if your mother says she loves you, check it out. I also tell them that you're probably not going to get rich. But you could get rich, but you're probably not. But you'll have a lot of fun. When counseling students, I hear echoes of my own upbringing. The first member of our family to graduate from college, the sons and daughters of immigrants. They may be different colors, different cultures, different religions, but they really share the same things I had. I give the kids the best, and then they come to me in counseling and they say, well, my parents don't want me to go into journalism because it's not secure. It's kind of strange, and I probably will be left out in the cold. And I give them the best advice based on my own experience that I could give them, and that is, don't listen to your parents. And from the advantage of my advanced years, I throw in a few life lessons, such as read, read, read. Read quality journalism and great literature. Read philosophy. Read poetry. Undo the shackles of the smartphone and take time to reflect. And once a year, get roaring drunk. Finally, here's where I get to vent a little and settle scores. You may have heard that in the groves of academe lie many brambles, thorns, and patches of poison ivy. I recently learned that some of our colleagues at the college who shall remain nameless, consider me and some of my fellow journalism instructors who teach elements of the so-called old journalism, dinosaurs. We're back to the dinosaurs now. This coming from a coterie of people who have doctorates and who have mastered the jargon of technology, but couldn't cover a murder, fire, or accident if their lives depended on it. This is kind of rich when I think of this award and I think of the Society of the Silurians, whose very name celebrates fossilization and the pride of clinging to the barnacled verities of tried and tested journalistic practices. When I heard the criticisms, I thought to myself, well, I'd rather be a brontosaurus than an ignoramus. Most of you out there, you, and you, are all dinosaurs, I would venture to say, and probably proud of it. And it's not just our scaly skin. I hope and pray that I am helping to train a new generation of dinosaurs. Yes, dinosaurs were plodding creatures, but they covered a lot of ground. And the earth shook when they moved. Peter Kihss today would be called a dinosaur. So I think I will name this the Dinosaur Award. Nickname it anyhow, it's still the Peter Kihss Award. And I retain the hope that till the next meteor hits the earth, we who value facts over opinion, good writing over flashy visuals, careful news judgment over clicks and ratings will never go extinct. Thank you.